Good afternoon, this is Tomas coming to you from Half Moon Bay. In January, I took a new teaching position in Half Moon Bay, California. I was recruited for the position by the assistant superintendent for special services. 3 teachers had worked in the class during the fall semester, and each one had resigned. She was in a situation where she as assistant superintendent was covering for a special day class with students labeled moderate to severe autistic spectrum disorder, and no substitute would take the class. Half Moon Bay is a small, affluent, coastal community town in Northern California. It's beautiful. The class has been through a lot of chaos in the first semester, and parents were actually threatening lawsuits, and it was not a comfortable situation for the school district or the school. There were a lot of safety concerns due to the chaos that had developed with so much fluctuation in staff. The safety concerns in the classroom were, in my opinion, due to the reactions of the students about all this uncertainty. You know, one child, when stressed, would bite adults and children alike. He's a kindergartner. One child, and those bites would draw blood or really seriously bruise adults and children. So this was a health and safety concern. The principal, in fact, is still dealing with a series of worker complaints. Another student also showed signs of aggressive behavior, throwing objects, flipping over tables. In fact, the first day hitting me with a table, and I got a big goose egg on my arm. Hitting, tearing off and damaging glasses, pulling hair. A third student would have severe meltdowns if he could not control everyone and everything in the environment. He wanted to have control of toys, or whether the lights were on and off. He wanted to control his friends, so they would do what he wanted them to do, play what he wanted them to play. And if he felt a loss of control, he would throw things, dive on people, or dive on the desired object and start a tug of war, and start kind of yelling, and or push over shelves, and throw whole buckets of materials, So in a class with so much violence and turbulence, there was this one boy that really concerned me, not because of violent acting out, but because of tuning out. He's a second grader, and really no language to speak of, or just a few words here and there. Bilingual boy. So some words in Spanish and some words in English, but really lack of engagement and ability to respond to instruction at the beginning. So in a class with so many volatile students, he was getting lost. And I think clearly he had kind of been that way his entire school career so far. It seemed like nobody was getting a handle on him, and he wasn't making any progress, or he hadn't since maybe preschool. Another student was fairly highly functioning, but had these moments when he would purposely trigger his best friend, the one that wanted to control everything. He would trigger him into crisis. Finally, the boy that would have the emotional outburst around control hit the other boy with an iPad and requiring stitches to the other boy. So early on I realized that safety was the top concern. 2 girls that were on my caseload had been placed in other classrooms with one-on-one para support, but I had little time to visit them in these environments to get to know them, or to modify assignments for them, or to push services into their classrooms other than, or even meet with their paras, because their paras, by the time I would be finished with school, the paras would be gone, and I didn't have opportunity to help those 2 students. 3 of the 5 boys in my little ragtag group had severely limited oral language. And upon my arrival in January, none of those students had functioning visual language systems like PECS or the iPad augmented communication devices to communicate their needs or wants. And I think that this certainly had to make the problem worse. If you can't say what you want or communicate what you need, it's got to be frustrating. And this included an 11-year-old boy and a 7-year-old boy. While I could see why the current classroom situation of stops and starts had not helped develop those systems of communication for those students, that didn't really explain to me why these older boys had no system for communicating after all those years in school. It just, points to maybe a need for, staff development around and program development, around the communication issues in autistic kids in Half Moon Bay, which is a district I just came into in January. I think, you could see that there was evidence that they had stopped and started, but I think the turmoil, the stops and starts, really made those attempts at beginning PECS or some type of visual communication system fail. And then so that was my first priority, along with developing a safety plan with the behaviorists in our district and the paras. That was another issue, is that not only the teachers resigned, but the paraprofessional resigned, and so I had a substitute para who's quite good come in. Right now that job is still open. Anyway, I've spent 37 years in some very challenging teaching environments, 30 years in public school and 7 years teaching preschool in my teaching career. And I've always focused on students with special needs, but mostly working with mild to moderate handicaps. And so I had not worked with children with such severe language and social problems, and sort of at the severe end of the spectrum. Most of the students with autism I'd worked with were higher functioning. But I actually find this to be to fit me very well, and I love the challenge, and I find it really fascinating. I love working with these students. They're really compelling, and they make me curious, and I want to find ways to join them in their interest. Each student in this classroom also has really complicated sensory needs. 3 of the 5 boys make little to no eye contact, and one of the little girls has that too. And then they had really great difficulty attending to instruction, to shared reading, writing, or art activities without one-on-one, hand-over-hand prompting. Another combination of 3 students have intense reactions to loud noises, which can be really challenging at times. So all the students had also issues around food, odors, sensitivity to certain textures, and joint attention became really interesting and challenging. You could see students give attention for as little as 5 seconds if it's not a desired activity, and then they'd would escape the teacher, paraeducator, or behaviorist that was trying to instruct them. But with certain activities, they would attend for 10 or 15, maybe 20 minutes. So that became really interesting to me. And also the use of technology seems to really be engaging for them, especially around shared reading. So I did find that that was helpful. And using Epic Reader, which is free, and then we got a district license for Learning Ally, which I think is going to be really important for these students because there's 80,000 more titles there for the students to enjoy. Let's see. So certain students in the class, especially those with powerful, affluent parents, had teams of behaviorists assisting. They had outside OTs. They had a lot of services in place. They had robust IEPs and really kind of had a lot going on. Others seem to have very little information to build on and only had me as their advocate. And that wasn't necessarily based on who had the highest level of need, you see. It's more who was the squeakiest wheel, who had the most influence, I guess. So 3 months into it, with a lot of teamwork between behaviorists, the OT has been doing a good job of trying to help me with sensory issues, even though that's, I just gave him the book from Lindsay Beal to see if he'd start working with me around those sensory issues. His goals always tended to be for every student tracing and cutting. But with the second grade student who's going to be a third grader at the end of the school year, right? Or going to be turning 8, right? And the fifth grader who barely have any language at all. I'm not sure that those are the key goals for OT to be working on. And while those might be important, I think first has to be the sensory issues, that we really get better at identifying their sensory issues as a team, and that we develop the sensory diet. And I've been really thankful to have accessed that video by Lindsay Beal, and then getting on her website and purchasing her book, which I purchased the book for all the families too, and I want to start a little book club, or at least have good conversations with them about their particular students. But I like the idea of the parents being able to share how they've dealt with sensory issues, and not only expertise coming from me, but them helping each other. But anyway, I think we have the safety issues under control. We have students that need it with communication systems, and including 2 students on the AAC on the iPad, and 2 students that are using PECS. They have predictable structure and curriculum that they'll attend to more often because it's based on their interests. So while we have a long way to go, I'm pleased, that I'm beginning to focus on instruction and academic goals and see some growth in their intellectual and social development. Thanks for listening, and I really do enjoy the class and all of your ideas, all of you, your great community of educators and colleagues. So thank you very much, and I look forward to more of it.